What if we don't have someone who is of that rank, that is capable of heading this commission?
Oh, he will continue in his acting capacity, pending when the process can be initiated. I don't know, but there are quite a number of, except what we can say is, what if we don't have the government being sincere enough to appoint somebody that would be able to do the job? There are quite a number of people who can do the job across the country, but it's just about the sincerity of purpose on the part of the government to get someone who can actually decide that duty.
Okay, I was going to ask you a question about some of the cases that have been put on bail, so to speak. But let's look at that leadership issue. There was a time there was a call from the National Assembly, so to speak, to look at the EFCC Act and ensure that whoever heads the EFCC is a retired judge. Do you think that will make any difference?
No, I said it here the last time. I think it really wasn't going to make much difference. I mean, the sincere thing was, it was part of the concern that the general public was expressing that actually reflected itself on the floor of the House of Representatives. But that concern, like I put it the last time, turned into confusion, because they could not really sit down well to look at the issues appropriately and make the sound recommendations that can actually reposition the institution. We can't get a retired judge. We're not looking at people who are already getting to the end of their life. We're looking at people who are still young, vibrant, and committed to having change. We're not talking about people who really many times don't want to rock the boat. We're not talking about people who want to maintain the status quo. We're not talking about people who have so many appendages. We're talking about people who will have the drive, who would be able to take on very, very groundbreaking issues, who would have their future ahead of them, who would have their family name also to protect, and then who probably must have proven over time that they're people of integrity. And
one of the headlines this morning in the papers, Mrs. Waziri did say, well, she heard of her removal on television. So are we likely to see, or are you expecting to see
come back,
that she heard of her removal on television? It's a front page story here. But again, are you likely to see a proper handover to Mr. Lamrode, so that we don't get to talk about improper handover notes?
It will be a lame excuse for Lamrode to come back and say he doesn't get a proper handover. Then he should charge Madam Waziri to court, because there's a civil service rule. There's always a procedure of handing over. If that is not met, then the right thing should be done. Nobody should come that when Madam Waziri was coming that she wasn't properly handed over to. That is just lame. There are processes of anybody leaving office handing over to the person that is going to succeed you in office.
You don't think that she could be aggrieved enough if you hear about your own sack?
How did she hear about her appointment? She should tell Nigerians. How did she hear about appointments?
Would it have been on television as well?
Most of the appointments you see are just heard on the television or on the radio. They get their appointment letters thereafter. Let someone else come and tell it to Nigerians.
They're told that you're going to be getting an appointment.
I'm telling you, some of them are told the day of the appointment. Even after the announcement is when they will call them and say you have been appointed. But then the process probably of lobbying and the rest of that must have gone. So if she's sacked on the pages of the newspaper, the government will come back here and tell you otherwise. So if she's saying she had it on, the most important thing is she's been sacked. So if she's been sacked, she needs to leave the office. Then she probably there's no basis for her to say she's been aggrieved.
Loads of inherited cases now on with Mr. Lamrode. What do you expect to see? Because now we're getting to see all of these inherited cases way back 2006 till this moment. Some of them before her removal hadn't even seen the light of day. So what do you expect Mr. Lamrode
that's what I'm saying,
to do?
There's a need for total regeneration of that institution, and there's a need to build public confidence in that institution, and there's a need to send warning signals to stakeholders, judges and lawyers. It is very important. The EFCC Act, as it is now in terms of operation, is very potent. It's just about the person and the ability of whoever is leading the institution to put it to use. Just like I said, it is not enough for you to just go to court and get a stay of proceeding. The EFCC Act does not allow that.
You talk about the potency of the Act. It reminds us of the Gazette written by the Attorney General. So you remember all of that.
Trying to talk about the merger, and the rest.
How does all of, not even the merger,
that they should report back to his office?
How does all of that help this fight against corruption?
No, it is very important, because they need to. It's a trial. That tells you the signal and the kind of government that we're running. It is about them trying to reduce the potence of that institution. But the leadership can put your foot down and say, no, this law empowers me to do this. One of the key ones, which where the National Assembly failed, and that is why if the right thing is not done, especially in that regard, is with regard to the annual report that the EFCC is expected to submit to the National Assembly. That would have given an institution like the National Assembly the opportunity to assess the institution, evaluate its performance, and also make recommendations. But where the faults are in that regard, anybody can come up and say, you have to submit reports to me, or you have to dance to my tune, or answer to my calls. But where the institution we have an Attorney General when Ribadu was there. We've had Attorney General while Lamode was acting. But when they can see that there are already lapses, loopholes to exploit within the performance and actions of the leadership of the institution, then they just come out.
A quick one here. How can the Attorney Generals help the Commission? Because if we keep talking about
I've always said that the Attorney General really would not help the anti-corruption institution. They are all just part and parcel of the system. The people of Nigeria would be the one to help the anti-corruption institution. So the media will be the one to help the anti-corruption institutions.
How can we help? How can Nigerians help?
The Nigerians would need to, as much as possible, demand for information. It is very important. You know, we are already immune to the cases of corruption that we just read it and we laugh, or we just say, have you read about that one again? It's just like an everyday life to us. We don't even see it as anything serious. We need to change our attitude towards that. The media also would assist with this investigative journalism and reporting to the extent that we can follow corruption cases to logical conclusions. We need to put the leadership of these anti-corruption institutions under the heavy searchlight of the media, and then for Nigerians to continue demanding for accountability, because that is actually lacking. It is the lack of accountability on the part of the president that results in this kind of removal without reasons for that removal. But where you know that you are accountable to the people, then you would know that there must be the basis for you, first and foremost, to tell for these so reasons, which probably will be difficult for Madam Waziri to controvert, or she can be a basis for her to say, okay, I'm proceeding to court because they say I'm insane, but I'm not insane. They say I'm corrupt, but I'm not corrupt. I probably don't need to go back to that office, but I need to clear my name. You know, so these are the kind of accountable things. Then it's also important for us to continue demanding for this from our leadership, because it's very, very important. And then we can then assess the anti-corruption crusade there.